Hello, how are you doing? Go on, sit back, put the kettle on. You're now listening to Conversations About Animals with Joel Connors and Isaac Murphy. Today, we will be talking about frogs. There seems to be a kind of surge of popularity in frogs on the internet, like over the past couple of years. Like
memes coming out, and one of the popular things is a frog chair in Animal Crossing everyone loves.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's just a green chair with frog eyes at the back and and a
oh,
mouse.
Right, because I was sort of thinking, so there's a big group on Facebook called Frog Spotting, and it's just people gushing over frogs. Because the nature of the internet is that it's worldwide, so we're both in the UK, and therefore really the only frog we'd be familiar with is the common frog, Rana temperaria, which is a great frog.
Yeah,
but then there are so many odd frogs in the world as well.
Yeah, in comparison, I think it's bad to say that ours are boring, but compared to some of the ones in the world, ours aren't quite as extravagant.
But then I posted a picture. It's the picture that I'm going to use as the thumbnail for this of a common frog, and there was a comment about, "Oh, it's a lovely frog. Why are you calling it common?" And then people were responding, "Well, that's the price of success. You're so successful that you're making it easy, making it look easy, rather."
Yeah. But aren't they almost getting more restricted to just garden ponds, in a sense? They're a little bit less common because of another species of frog.
Well, so I believe you've seen them, and I haven't. Pool frogs. Because pool frogs, they're only in certain regions of the UK.
They're mine.
Yes. I remember, I think you sent me like a Snapchat of one. Like you sort of, and they're much bigger as well.
And they're a lot brighter as well. A lot brighter, a much brighter green.
So pool frogs, their scientific name, I believe, is Pelophylax lessonae. I believe.
Oh,
this is. I'm putting this on the internet, so if I'm wrong, someone will correct me.
Someone will tell you.
But they used to be classed as Rana lessonae, to say that they're in the same genus as the common frog, and they are closely related to the edible frog. But we don't have that. So that's really something that mostly lives in France. Well, it's best known for being in France, at least. So it's odd because there have been introductions of pool frogs where they don't necessarily survive well, but then there have been enough introductions so that they are taking a foothold in certain areas.
Yeah, so I feel bad for not remembering his name, but the guy I was talking to in Hambrook Marshes, he was saying that they don't really find the regular common frogs as much because the pool frogs kind of taken over that area, and you're more likely now to see common frogs in someone's back door pond. Because it's a closed environment almost. And it's interesting to think that they'll survive a little bit better in a man-made structure than natural one.
Here's the complicated thing about pool frogs. You see, if you ask, are they invasive? The answer really is, well, yes, but actually no.
Why is that?
Well, way back in the Pleistocene.
Not too long ago, then.
Well, by our lifetimes, yes, geologically, not that long ago.
Yeah.
Basically, so the North Sea didn't exist because like all the ice sheets were so expansive that liquid water was in less abundance. So you could walk from Britain to Scandinavia, which just sounds fantastic.
Yeah. Make holidays easier.
Yeah, but as well as having things like Neanderthals and mammoths walking across this area of Europe, there were also pool frogs. And there is a tiny population of pool frogs. Can't remember where in the UK they are, but they do exist, where they have been genetically analyzed, and they bear a closer resemblance to pool frogs from Norway and Sweden than they do to pool frogs from France, which is where all of the human-made introductions have come from. There haven't been any attempts to take Norwegian frogs into the UK and introduce them there. So there's this sort of kind of moral quandary of whether we take these frogs as invasive because they're related to the French families, but they are the same species as this one that came from Norway and is already here.
They've rightfully claimed their little space.
But but I don't think the common frog is really in much danger of being outcompeted because they're still all over Scotland, they're all over Wales, all over the western counties.
It's interesting because usually when there's an invasive species, it's quite clear cut. This is a bad guy.
Yes,
he's been put.
Well, I read a book recently. I'm pointing at my bookshelf now. It's called. Hold on. It's called Where Do Camels Belong?
Okay.
Yeah, and it's all about invasive species, and we sort of have to question: are invasive species necessarily bad? And what really counts as invasive? Like if it was there thousands of years ago and it's disappeared and over some kind of events, but then humans bring it back but the environment has changed without it, but then once it comes back, it starts changing back to how it was before then. Is that an invasion?
That is a theoretical conundrum, I guess.
But regarding amphibians, the UK isn't particularly blessed.
No,
like we have, cool ones. I think the main two people would be familiar with is the common frog and the common toad.
Yes. Then we have a couple other amphibians, newts and such.
Yes, we've got 3 species of newt.
Palmate, crested,
and smooth.
Yeah.
Just looking, I'm looking through my notebook because I have them listed. I know I do.
The great trio.
Yeah, so I've got them listed with their Latin names.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I've said earlier, the common frog, Rana temperaria, and the common toad, Bufo bufo.
Yeah.
And the other ones, we have the natterjack toad and the midwife toad. The pool frog, as I said earlier. Oh, that is Pelophylax SNA. Thumbs up. Yes.
First try.
Great crested newt, the smooth newt, and the palmate newt. So there's not a lot of amphibians that we have.
We're not very blessed in the herp side at all, though, are we?
No, and I think we've got 3 species of snake.
I'm
not sure how many lizards we have.
Yeah. We drew the short straw with herpetology.
Well, yeah, but that is, we are a sort of fairly cold country, so that is
exactly.
Yeah, we're not no surprises there. Regarding toads, it's a
common question. What's the difference between a toad and a frog?
Or a toad and a frog, as you'd put it. Well, it's a complicated answer depending on how you want me to answer it. So if I can easily tell the difference between a common frog and a common toad. But here's the thing. Toads are a type of frog. So
there you go.
There's no kind of phylogenetic distinction. It's just, okay, there are some families of frog that have short-limbed, possibly dry, warty skin. So we call them toads, but really they are in the frog family. I mean, really,
Yeah.
The kind of the correct term, if you want to encompass frogs and toads, is anurans.
Yes, which
Mm.
is it without tail?
Oh, I
Is
didn't
that
know
what
that. It
anura
makes,
means?
yeah, actually, yeah, I
Mm.
think I hadn't thought about that actually. So yeah,
Uh,
maybe we should be pronouncing it anurans, not anurans.
there you go. um,
Yeah, so the oldest known frog uh, was from the Triassic,
mhm.
which actually it had a little stumpy tail.
It was on its way out.
Yeah, it was called Triadabatrachus. Again, this is the internet, so someone will probably correct me on my pronunciation.
Yeah, it is the name that I managed to get down as well.
Hmm.
I wasn't confident on my pronunciation.
So yeah, and the thing is that they came in at the beginning of the Triassic, possibly the beginning of the Permian.
Yeah, I was reading they used molecular clocking to try and track down how old
Hmm.
their lineage could be, and yeah, they suggested that it could be the late Permian.
Yeah,
Um,
which
and
coincides with the biggest extinction event ever.
mm,
Which kind of explain because if you think about it, frogs are they're odd. Like they generally have the body plan of like a kind of a round body with a wide head,
yeah,
and possibly with two long back legs that just leap that big mouth forward, so that with 95% of life being wiped out,
mm,
they would there would be so much free space for the survivors to take up niches, which is sort of you kind of get these kind of experimental phases of evolution
yeah.
around these times like this.
hmm and that is why we've got such a massively diverse selection of amphibians around the world. If you
Yes,
compare a couple, it's
I mean,
outrageous. Like a poison dart frog
oh yeah,
compared to, like we spoke earlier about
pixie
the
frogs,
pixie frogs. They
which
look
for our
vastly different.
listeners, for our listeners who might not necessarily be familiar with pixie frogs, they look nothing like pixies. They're not. I wouldn't call them cute. Some people would,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I
but
guess that's based on relationship more than physical
yes,
attributes.
I have seen them in person because I went to like one of those animal colleges,
Mm.
and they had a humidity room with a lot of amphibians in it, and so we ate mice, and it nearly went for one of my friend's hands, which
How bad could a bite from a frog be? I've always wondered this because I've always heard, and I've never
hmm,
gone against anyone's judgment of don't put your hand in the cage. But how bad could a bite
I
be?
don't know. I've never seen someone get bitten by a frog, but that frog, I reckon it would hurt. But you
Maybe
know,
no one survived.
it
That's what it
wouldn't.
is.
I don't think it could bite off your hand. But the interesting thing about pixie, I'm going to stop calling it the pixie frog and actually call it by a proper name,
Yeah.
uh, the African bullfrog. But the scientific
Which,
name is Pixie-cephalus, hence why people call it the pixie frog.
yeah, is like a little play on the name, little
Hmm.
joke.
But they, it's weird because frogs don't have teeth,
No,
but
no.
this one sort of does. It's the skull kind of projects out into these little conical bits around the mouth. So functionally, it
Okay.
does have teeth, but it doesn't have like teeth in sockets like we do.
Yes.
So it could probably draw blood from a human hand,
You
but
wouldn't. You wouldn't like it then.
no. And like I remember seeing Lewis put the mouse in, and he wasn't using tongs. I don't think. I might be misremembering, but he
Okay.
did have to quickly draw his hand back out because it was quite fast and hungry. Because frogs
Yeah, they've
aren't
got an
particularly
appetite.
intelligent. Like there are frog breeders with xenopus frogs,
Okay.
uh, otherwise known as the African clawed frog, where they will breed and lay a load of eggs, and then eat those eggs.
When you get hungry, you get hungry. Have you got a favorite frog? That's hard to
Oh,
pick.
that is a good question.
Mm.
While I have a lot of nostalgia for the common frog, because it is the one that I've seen the most of, I'd really love to see a few frogs. There's the wood frog, which is also in the genus Rana, but that lives in North America, and it is actually it's the frog that you'll find closest to a pole.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's called Rana sylvaticus, and effectively, what it does is it survives winters. It can survive being frozen. Like it has a kind of there's a chemical in its blood that helps it freeze and thaw out with the seasons. I think that's pretty cool.
That is cool. It kind of goes into
like humans can't do that,
chamber.
but frogs can.
Yeah. There you go.
I'd just like to say to any of our listeners, don't pick up random frogs and put them in the fridge. Or the freezer for that matter, especially the freezer.
And don't pick them up with your bare hands at all, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think that is a good point. Frogs can survive being picked up, but it's not necessarily good for them. Like we carry bacteria on our hands. We have our sweat can, I believe, be corrosive to their skin. So that's not to say never pick up a frog, but I like to sort of go by the philosophy of if you don't need to touch an animal, don't touch it.
Let it be.
Yes. So like if you see a frog in the road, by all means pick it up and help it cross.
Yeah.
But also frogs really don't like tap water. So yeah, there are chemicals in tap water to make it clean and drinkable for us. So we don't have things like typhoid, which actually that I believe typhoid evolved specifically to kill humans.
Wait, say that again.
I believe typhoid evolved specifically to kill humans, or at least breed in humans and pass through us.
You think that they were most successful, so kind of evolved to take advantage of us as a niche? Do you reckon? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because not many other species are affected by typhoid. But anyway, back to the frogs, because that's the theme of this podcast.
Yeah.
There are things like fluoride in tap water, which was put in. I think that was put in tap water in the 50s to make our teeth clean, and then people realized, oh no, you shouldn't be swallowing fluoride. But there are still traces of it in tap water. Calcium is in tap. Calcium is regionally in tap water. You'll have exam questions about hard and soft water.
Yeah.
And really the question to what is hard water? The answer is not ice.
Back though to favorite frogs. I came up with a couple that I was looking at. So there was the one that we spoke about, the Indian purple frog, and I'm going to go for a jab at a Latin name.
I don't know its Latin name.
The longest one I could have picked. It's Nasica batrachus cyhyadrensis.
I think you've nailed the pronunciation.
But apparently they live most of their life predominantly as a burrowing animal.
Yeah, and they sort of only come out in the breeding season.
In the monsoon season for 2 weeks.
Yes.
So they don't really see much light of day.
No.
They're also known as the pig nose frog because of their little nose, and I think because of that nose is what captures me. I think they just look so sweet.
Because it's like someone's done a drawing of a frog and forgotten what frogs look like.
Exactly. Yeah. Do they have noses?
Yes. But it's a little pointy thing as well, but with this stupidly round body.
Yeah.
Which I think is that kind of roundness. It's for because frogs they're so dependent on water and
Yeah,
they have
stay
that sort of
moist.
permeable skin, so it's that ratio between body volume and surface area.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But on the
And
opposite end of that spectrum is
yeah,
another favorite frog of mine, the Lake Titicaca scrotum frog.
nice. That's already a good name.
Yes, so Lake Titicaca, it's a very high elevation lake,
Mm.
which means there's very little oxygen up in those mountains. But there's this species of frog endemic to that lake, and it's very wrinkly, hence the name scrotum.
Okay. Yeah.
So it has that ridiculous amount of skin because frogs breathe through their skin. So it's to try and take in more oxygen. But they don't
Oh,
leave the lake. They permanently live under the water.
okay. So
I
they've
don't
kind
believe
of
anyone's ever
increased
seen
their
one come
surface
out.
area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I think they are endangered as well.
Hmm. It seems to be quite a common case for frogs. Full stop.
Yes,
Which
because yeah. I'll
leads
let
us
you.
quite nicely into the whole amphibian extinction crisis.
Yeah. So weirdly, there are two things to worry about with the amphibian extinction crisis. Well, actually, no, there are two diseases to worry about. There are other things to worry about as well.
Hmm.
But the diseases that we're kind of focusing on are chytrid, or for long, chytridiomycosis, which is fungal, or there's ranavirus, which is, as the name suggests, a virus.
Yeah.
Now, from the research that I've seen, chytrid has not reached the UK yet. Now, every sort
Okay.
of zoo that you sort of go to or animal collection, people will talk about the chytrid fungus, and you need to have these safety measurements to protect the frogs from it. You need to wash your hands, etc.
Mm.
But I can't find any reports that say chytrid is in the UK.
Mm.
But that's not to say that you shouldn't just forget any
Oh
husbandry
yeah,
frogs,
absolutely.
because they
Yeah.
can be very vulnerable to diseases like
Yeah.
ranavirus, which is in the UK. The the main symptoms include like redness and swelling and eventual death. But some frogs do survive, so it's possible that they might evolve an immunity. But worldwide, chytrid is very much to be feared. They've put, I think, about 70 species extinct in the wild.
Oh wow. What? Just that one disease? Just the one of them?
Yeah, just the chytrid, yeah. And it is being spread with the aid of climate change because it requires warmer temperatures. As fungi like warm and humid temperatures, which is
As a
unfortunately
planet.
what frogs like as well.
So they kind of they live together, and then one
Yeah.
jumps on the other. Sadly, the frog doesn't last too well after that.
You say jumping on the other, like frog leaping.
Yeah, but less fun as it was back
Yeah.
in the playground.
I can't remember I remember seeing frog leaping, but I don't remember doing it myself.
I definitely have done my fair share of leapfrogging. It's a fun activity, but it only gets you so far before you realise that I'm just going to run for a bit, play tag.
Have you ever seen a frog eating?
Is this they kind of swallow by like with their
Yeah,
eyes?
they
So,
close their eyes, so they don't have a palate like we do, where we can
yeah.
just swallow things. They actually have to force their prey down by pushing their eyeballs down, which I just think is bizarre. Like they haven't out evolved that, because it works.
But you'd think it's detrimental as when they're eating with their eyes closed, which means they're quite vulnerable when they're eating, right?
Well, it's just like one firm push, and then the eyes are back out. But again, I think it was in frog spotting. I'm plugging this Facebook group by accident, but it is very relevant.
It is a good page,
Yeah.
so I mean, rightfully so.
But there was a frog born with the mutation of the eyes on the inside of its mouth, like looking out.
Oh
So
wow!
I'm not sure how it would eat. It would sort of have to navigate the world with its mouth open, which is bizarre for a frog anyway.
Yeah.
But it had reached adult stage. It had gone from tadpole to adult.
Wow.
And again, that's another weird thing about frogs. They start off as tadpoles. Humans
Yeah.
just start off as babies, although there are a few species of desert frog that they just come out as frogs.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
So but if you look at a human embryo, it's
Yeah.
got a sort of head and a small body and a long tail. So there is that kind of weird evolutionary hangover that we still have those kind of fish genes in us.
Okay. So at one point, I was a tadpole myself.
Yes, I suppose you were.
Hmm.
But yeah, again, but there's also the weird switch because tadpoles tend to be herbivorous.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
believe there are all frog adults are carnivores.
I'm pretty sure most of them are, at least.
I can't think of a single one. Again, this
Not
is on the
off the top
internet,
of my
so
head.
there will be someone out there. There will be a herpetologist who goes, "No, there is this one."
Yeah, because the way I remember tadpoles is when I used to go to my nan's and they'd always be just munching away at the algae on the side of the pond.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
So then to also make the change of diet and
Yeah.
shape so dramatically.
Yes, and I believe I don't know if this is correct. So, someone on the internet, please do correct me on this one. I believe common frogs, they grow the back legs first, and toads do the front legs first.
That's interesting. I found something earlier about a frog that got rediscovered
Oh,
recently.
I think I heard about this.
There's in the Philippines.
Keep going.
So it's another Latin name, so I might slander this as well. It's Pulcarana guttamani. It's a type of stream frog, so a frog that lives in a stream rather than ponds.
Oh yes.
And it hasn't been since 1993, so before we were born. But it wasn't until 2015 where someone discovered that this is actually a completely different species. So it was found back in 1993, but it wasn't known to be a new species till 2015. They thought it was another species of frog that resembles it very closely. And that's why they was just kind of like swept under the radar for so long. And it was just this year, I think it was, that they found this frog again. They've rediscovered it. And it's in an area that hasn't really been looked after too well or like watched very well. And because of the discovery of them, they think that protection for that area is going to be a little bit more easier. And
nice.
Hopefully a little bit more like this in the future, finding more species or rediscovering old species can help with the conservation in the future.
Yeah, I'm hoping to hear more good news about frogs.
So hopefully we can end on the idea that frogs are going to be
it's not all doom and gloom.
A little bit safer in the future, but we'll wait and see for now.
Thank you for listening. That was Conversations About Animals with Joel Connors and Isaac Murphy. If you want to interact with us online, we're on social media. On Twitter, I am at Joel Thelonious, and Isaac is at Isaac_G_Murphy. On Instagram, I'm at Joel T. Connors. Isaac is at Isaac_@_life. We hope you'll tune in soon for the next episode. Thank you for listening.